Are you looking for new books to read? Do you like finding a new special author? Are you tired of the same old books from the same old authors? Well, then, welcome to Discovered Wordsmiths, a podcast where you can hear from fantastic new authors. Join Stephen Schneider as he finds and talks to authors you may not know, but authors that have worked hard to write great new books. Hear about their book and why you should check it out. So sit back and listen to today's Discovered Wordsmith.
Well, Samantha, welcome back to Discovered Wordsmith, second part here with the author discussions. Let me ask you about some things about your writing before we have our big topic. What were some things you learned about writing that you would do different or you are doing different with your next book?
Everything. I mean, well, first of all, I think I really taught myself to be a writer. I really understand what it means now. Whereas when I first started, like I told you when we spoke earlier, I based, a lot of these books, came out of my writing as a journal, writer, keeping journals and just kind of reflecting on things. But journal writing is not a book. I mean, it can be, but it's not as disciplined as I wanted this book to be. I really wanted to create a visual story. And so like I think like the thing I learned was uh you know, I mean everything from obvious things like show don't tell, y- you know, to just the importance of proofreading and proofreading again. And the first edition went out with a few typos, and I think that, really line editing is so important. Um, and, I think that I learned to use my words more powerfully. Um, I think that, I don't, I think that I naturally have always been a kind of a raconteur, storyteller, and I was a good wordsmith because I've done copywriting, but writing a book is very different than writing a copy line for an ad.
Right.
It's really layers and layers and layers. And it takes a lot of discipline, and I've definitely been one of those kind of people, bright shiny object, Sam's gone, and you really need to put in the time. That's the other thing I learned. You know, um, I really thought, like, I had a girlfriend who I really respect as a writer, and I said, "Could you just write this for me? I really want to get this done." But it was just so personal. There's no way anyone could write it but me. And so it really, dawned on me, like, and also running a company, you're so used to having a great idea and saying, "Oh, could you just put these things together and make this poster or make this trailer or do this or do that?" Um, but, being a writer is a very solitary, event. You really have to, you know, just go deep inside your soul and live there and be there with yourself and have it come out through your fingers. And at first, it was just like, I can't, I was just too antsy. I just like, oh, I think I need a cup of coffee now, and then I come back and, okay, I think I need to go outside and talk to the gardener. I hear he's here now. I mean, any excuse to just get away from sitting there. And I think it's also because it was my book, Blind Pony, as true a story as I could tell, it was also very painful. It was evoking very painful memories. The book I'm working on now, um, it's just such a blast to write it because it's a fiction and I'm just having so much fun with it. But my chops are really there now that weren't there when I first started Blind Pony. And I had a slim volume of Blind Pony sort of coalesced, and then I thought I had a book, and then boy, it took me months after that to sort of keep squeezing it tighter and tighter and tighter and expanding and expanding and expanding.
Nice. Right. So So when you're writing, what do you use? What software or what do you use for your writing? What tools?
Um, I don't really use anything. I use just Microsoft
Okay.
Word. I mean, very pretty basic. Um, I still keep this around. Um, I like to write some things out longhand. Um, and it's funny because when I do that, I never go back to it and type that or write that. I write my thoughts down and then I come and write, and whatever came out there comes out here in a different voice, so to speak. So I
Okay.
kind of trained myself to do that.
Okay. So you had some thoughts on changing the whole indie pub. Now you're indie published, but through your own publishing company, right?
Yeah, I went through my own publishing company. I
Okay.
created my own publishing company because um mainly because, like, you know, when the book wasn't in the final shape it was in, I tried to work with an independent publisher, which I'm not going to name because it was a very bad experience for me. I got the first cover for Blind Pony back and it looked like Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm, which is totally antithetical to my story.
Yeah.
It's like a young blonde girl with a farm and a horse running in the background. I said, "Did you read my book?" It's a dark book. I mean, not all of it's dark. It's actually very funny in places.
But you don't want people to
Um,
think it's a fiction book about for a young girl coming of age
Yeah,
story or
I mean
something.
that could be any number of books. I mean, it put, Golden Girl or like it could be anything. I really, and I'm very much a person who, because I've made a living on creating central images for films and album covers and things like that. It was very important to me that the cover be right, be reflective of what the book is. And so I called upon one of my colleagues, Nick Egan, who was the designer of Clash and Sid Vicious, and he did music videos for Alanis Morissette. And we've had, like different, like I worked with him in the movie industry, a music industry. We worked on the Tesla project together, and then we hooked up when I had my bigger company, and I got, and he as a commercial director, I hired him. And so I called him up one day and I said, "I have this book. I'd like you to read it and I want you to do the cover." And it took him all of reading the scene that's on the cover of the book for him to do it. Like he just said, I said, "That's it. That's the cover." And, I wanted it in kind of a Hockney style. And I said, "Can you do that?" And he said, "Yep." And it was done like in a day or 2 days. And it was perfect. So it was all him, it was all his idea. So I think that, like, it really got me thinking, the experience I went through, um, of there's no personal touch with these companies, you know. And then as my book started to get some heat, I started hearing from some of these independent places. Well, we want you to come out through us. We can handle all your marketing and your publicity and blah blah blah. Oh, okay, for free, and you'll give me an no, no, for
Right.
$15,000 or whatever. And but the book's done, and I've gotten the publicity, and that's how you heard about it. You know what I mean? It's I don't. I see. I talked to you the last time we talked about. I've always been a disruptor,
Right.
and I've been thinking about this publishing business and how it kind of needs a bit of disruption. I think that the things that are working about it with the big publishers are great. They have, if you're Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, Mary Trump, and you're going to sell millions of um, books, you need a big company like that to be behind you and all that. But I've met so many authors along the way with really great entertainments, really beautiful books, that probably won't see the light of day. I mean, I know my book has sold quite well because I've been a marketer most of my life, Um, and so it's not, like I kind of know how to do certain things, even though the book world is very different. I've learned to adapt and I'm kind of sponging off of different situations and whatnot. Um, but like a lot of people don't have that luxury. And I had, the financial ability to be able to hire good people around me to, work on it with me, in publicity and whatnot. A lot of people don't have that. And, it really helps that, my husband makes trailers. So, we can make a new trailer for my book every day if we want. Um, but, it's, but the trailers have to be strategic too. And so, I'm strategic with this. So I just, it's given me pause to think about like, well, maybe it's time this book industry gets disrupted a little. Um, because you see, like on some of these independent publishers, hundreds of books, I've never heard of any of them,
Right.
you know,
And
and
that's
like,
one of the problems with indie is getting the exposure, getting seen.
well, it's like, so why are you doing it? Well, it's important that you do it for yourself, but there's got to be something else, in it for the author, who's pouring theirself on the page, especially the good books. And there are plenty of them, you know. But as we live in this world that's getting like, independent bookstores are getting gobbled up. And, the only way they're going to survive is if they have the big books in the front window or whatever. So it's all this stuff. It's just, there's something not working. And I think, if one could figure that out, you might really have something.
True. And so you've been involved with it. You've had some background disrupting things in the music and film. What are some of your thoughts on disrupting and changing things for the better, for the helping the indie author?
Well, I think that if you're going to have a company like that, you have to have people at the helm that are running it that care. I think that it really comes down to, I mean, I've seen in my experience with indie film, um, I really feel like some of those films without my presence would have been lost in the shuffle. Um, I think certainly like when we had Gramercy, there were five core people. And there was a publicity person, a media guy, there was me, and there was a distributor, and then there was the president. And the five of us would get all on the same page, and each of us would throw everything we had at each of those categories. And we would just like by hook or by, I mean, I'll never forget one of my first, because I came out of the record business and all these people that were already there, the four key people, they all had like years of experience in film. And as in their category, publicity, distribution, media, whatever. And I had no experience. I knew nothing. But sometimes that innocence, really enables you to see something people miss. Like we had a bet, how much four weddings and a funeral would make. And they passed a hat around and you put the secret thing in. And so they opened it up and it's like 2 million, 1,500,000, which would have been considered a hit. And I said 50 million. And they go, "Oh, we know who projected 50 million." Well, it made 60 million. So I was the closest by far because like I saw something and when I was cutting the trailers, and putting together the TV spots and, coming up with the poster, it was like tapping into that consciousness that would make that just connect with people. How do you do that? And I'm pretty good at that. Um, I mean, I thought the director, I like, you can read about it in that book, The Oral History of Richard Linklater's Dazed and Confused, how much Richard Linklater hated the stoned happy face. But if you say dazed and confused, the first thing people think of all these many years later is the stoned happy face. See it with the bud. Have a
Eh,
nice days.
right.
The film everyone will be talking about. I mean,
That's super important. And I mean, the point I'm getting is you got to know what reaches the people to market to get the material there. Because I know I've been involved with a lot of authors that, I want my cover to look like this. It has to show this and put this on it. But you look at it and then you have no clue what it is, or their title. And you're like, I have no clue what genre this is. And
yeah,
but then there's the more seasoned authors, indie authors that have been around, and they're saying, people have to know, they have to read your title, look at the book, and know what it's about to be interested,
yeah,
and it has to hit them, like
yeah.
you just said.
Well, I mean, like I learned in the movie business, most directors can't cut their own trailers. Most directors don't know what the central image is. That's why, like on my book, I didn't even try to. I had no clue. I get paid to do that, lots of money, and I didn't know what to put on my cover. And Nick Egan figured it out like as soon as he read the passage in the book where I'm walking down the street in a towel with a turban on my head. That should be the cover. And so, I think that like just, you know, I think that there too many companies are taking in too many books that, maybe they're just doing it for the money. I got back notes from an editor from one of these companies. I wasn't allowed to talk to her. She had to remain anonymous. I didn't know who she was or he. And it was like she said that your book is a gift to your family and to the world, which was really amazing to hear, but then very scant on the notes, and I didn't really get much out of it. It was, my best advice to you is this, like, but I didn't feel I got much out of that, what I did. And so I think that there's a lot of people praying. Yeah, there's, people, if you want to write a book and you really don't care, like, if it's going to make it or not, these companies are fine, you know, but it's like, it's what's hurting the industry is there's a lot of pablum being recycled and being put out, or they can't stand up to the author and say, you know, that cover sucks, or, you got to rip this thing apart. It's not good enough. You know, go back to the well. These people places aren't going to tell you that because they
Right.
want to make the money.
Exactly. I think from my
And
observation,
so they're
and
kind of preying on people that, have a story in their heart they want to tell. I mean, think about the story of To Kill a Mockingbird, Harper Lee. That editor ripped her to shreds. She said, I don't like the father figure. You have to like that guy, for this to be a hit. And so she went back to the well and restructured it. And, I mean, that's a good editor. That's something that, every book needs that, my
right,
book could have used more editing. But, it's like, unless if you're willing, to be honest with an author, I don't think you should be doing publishing their book. I just think it's weird. I think it's a weird system. Like, oh, and it's set up that way because they're bleeding authors dry to make
right.
money for their companies.
And from what I've seen, the traditional author setup with the houses is they give the author an advance, and they kind of know what they're doing, take care of it. And like you said, they know where to put how to put the cover so it gets out there. They know what to edit and what people will buy for that genre and their audience and things like that. They take care of a lot of that. Whereas now we have the power for independence. And I think people, some slimy business people, let's say, saw an opportunity. Oh, if we look like a traditional house for these independents, they'll give us, they'll work with us. But like you said, they're not interested in making the book better, helping the book. They're interested in getting the money without any real services. And the
It's
benefit to,
it's borderline unethical.
I agree. The benefit of being independent is not only do I have control of everything, but I can find the exact best person for each job. I can find the best editor. I can find the best cover artist that sees my viewpoint and all of that.
Or if you create a company like that, then you create a company like that where you fight to the tooth and nail. You know, you only pick up the books that you think have a chance, that you really believe in, and then you fight tooth and nail for that book. Like we used to fight tooth and nail for these indie films. Like when I had the challenge of Boys Don't Cry, don't forget that was in the late 90s. You know, transgender people weren't being talked about or embraced on any level, let alone gay people. I mean, gay people weren't embraced, let alone transgender. So, you know, I was very strategic with that film. And when we bought that film at Sundance, you had to scrape the president of Fox off the ceiling because he was so angry. But guess who was sitting next to Hilary Swank when she won her Oscar? President of Fox. I mean, you know, and so it's like, but as a team, we felt like we could lift that film up. And, you know, for my part, um, you know, like design, you know, coming up with the poster image and the marketing, you know, I fought to have two trailers. I wanted to first go out with a sexy trailer that might just appeal to the gay and lesbian community and debuted it at the Gay and Lesbian Film Festival. Left out Hilary Swank, put Chloe Sevigny front and center because more people can maybe fantasize about kissing a girl than becoming a boy, you know. And then when the trailer came out, it was hard hitting about hate crimes. So it was like a two-step process to get to, you know, getting people psychologically on board. And we had a lot of straight people embrace that film. So it wasn't just a marginalized, you know, film about a transgendered kid. It wasn't lost in the shuffle. And so I do believe there are a lot of really interesting entertainments and stories and books out there that under the right umbrella, under the right hands, loving hands, not greedy hands, could really be lifted up. And you know, this whole business, it just makes me laugh. People say, "Well, what's your social media following?" Well, you know, look, my boys are 17. They don't even have social media. They don't want to have social media. Does that mean they're not going to be successful? You know, it's not, it's kind of like, you know, I mean, I do it because, you know, I know it's important at this point or whatever, but, or it's expected, but I mean, and it is a good way to get the word out or whatever. But to preclude an author from getting a deal, even though their book is amazing, because they don't have a big social media following, is just silly. You know, I mean, there was no social media when, you know, Sylvia Plath was writing, you know,
Right,
I
right.
mean, or you know,
Harper
Joan
Lee
Didion. Oh, what?
or Harper Lee. You mentioned
Yeah.
Will Mockingbird.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like it makes me angry. I mean, a social media following is definitely a plus. I'm not trying to be you know, a fuddy here, or Scrooge or whatever, about social media because I think it can be really valuable, again, in the right hands. But like, you know, what's your TikTok following? What's your Facebook following? What's your LinkedIn following? What's your, you know, I don't think that's the end all. You know, it makes it easy for these bigger companies, you know, to like a one of the you know, one of the real book companies now, like a Penguin or whatever. They'll definitely look at that and make a decision based on that in part. But I'm not talking about those kinds of companies as much as I am talking about some of these companies that are out there that are just their sole reason is to take your money. They don't care about you,
Right,
they don't care about your
right.
book, and that just gets me angry. And I think, you know,
And
more
you
and
got to
more I
watch
am
that.
seeing some resources for indie authors, but I think it needs some disruption. I think it
So,
needs
what
to
are some of
be
your thoughts and what's some of your thoughts and suggestions that what
well,
would
I
you
think I should
do
start
to
a I
disrupt
think
it?
I should start a company.
Well, there
Disrupt
you
it.
go.
So maybe I will. Um, No, I think I have to put more thought into it, to be honest. My gardener's here, so
Oh,
apologies if you can hear that.
that's okay. I've had people walking around, so we're good.
Um, but you know, it's definitely been on my mind. You know, it's I'm torn because, like, of course, I would love it if HarperCollins called me up and said, "We want to give you a huge advance for your next book because we love Blind Pony, and it performed so well for an indie." I'm not saying like I wouldn't, love that. Um, but if that shouldn't happen, what's the next best thing? And that's where I think it needs to be. Something needs to happen and change, a
And
shifting.
I think some of it may be happening. And I think part of it is education. A lot of people say, well, I want to write a book. They sit down, they write a book, and then they're like lost in an open world. They have no clue. They're just, floundering to see, what choices there are. But there's more voices out there saying, you got to watch this. Don't sign up with these people because they rip you off. And here's some things to do, and here's people to talk to. I think education itself may be helping.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I think that there should be, and I do see some of these places, I'm getting a lot of emails from different places, that are trying to unite indie authors. But, maybe there's like something else that could happen. I mean, you know, uh, like back in the early days of indie film, indie film companies were more like vanity companies for labels, for bigger film companies. But then it did get to a point where it was just a way to get actors to work for less money. Put them in a boutique film. But they were, special entertainments. So maybe you would take a cut and pay or whatever. But you get more on the back end, or that type of thing. So I just think that it's, you know, I don't know. I don't have the answer just at this point, but I do think that, um, you know, there could be a solution here uh, that would be, you know, good for everybody.
All right. Well, Samantha, before we get going, what would be your uh, advice for new authors? Your top of the mind advice for any new authors that are listening?
Find a good editor and trust. Find somebody you trust, and maybe ask around people, ask for recommendations. I think that you know take your time, you know um with it, to get it perfected before I mean, like I said, I had a couple of typos in my first release that the line editor didn't catch. um so but I think the main thing that I would advice I would give to any author is commence. Just start writing, because until you start writing. I mean, the director Steven Soderbergh told me that years ago. Like, he said, if you're trying to do something creative, you just have to start. You just have to commence, because it's like, you can have something in your head for years, and if you don't if you don't commence, it's not going to come out. And then stick to it. Be you know that it's worthy to stick to it and keep going. And um you know i it's funny, like, um to be being asked what's my advice, because like I like I said, I still can't believe that I can put author on my resume. I mean, I'm still stunned, that I did it. So I think that it's just, follow your heart. I mean, everybody deserves to be seen and heard. And, that's I think that's why people write.
Right. I agree. Great.
So
Well, Samantha, thank you for taking some time to talk with us today. I appreciate
thank
it.
you
It's
so
been really fun.
much. Okay.
Thank you for listening to Discovered Wordsmiths. Come back next week and listen to another author discuss the road they've traveled, and maybe, sometime in the near future, it might be you.